Eric Schutzbank, Barrett and Schutzbank LLC, is a family law attorney, mediator, collaborative law practitioner, guardian ad litem, and parenting coordinator in North Andover. He is on the Massachusetts Probate and Family Court's list of Category F guardian ad litem, is admitted with an active family law practice in New Hampshire, and has been selected to the 2020 Massachusetts Super Lawyers List.
Thank you to all of the people taking this webinar on Practicum today. So my topic is co-parenting in a pandemic, with some tips for parents and clients to navigate problems during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, back in March, the biggest question that we received was, as a family law practitioner, are parenting plans in place? And the short answer is absolutely. Just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that parenting plans are suspended. They remain in place so long as it's safe for children to go from house to house during the pandemic. In fact, Chief Justice Casey of the Probate and Family Court back in late March issued a letter, as you can see on your screen, saying that parenting plans were to remain in place. And you'll notice in that letter there are co-parenting resources for the mandatory parent education requirements during the pandemic, for information on co-parenting during this stressful time, from the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts about guidelines for parenting during the pandemic. Now, in terms of what are the pandemic parenting problems that you might encounter? One parent being overly worried about what to do during the pandemic, one parent not acting in a safe manner, one parent or both parents being infected, one house having immune-compromised parents or relatives, high conflict relationships, and as we open up into phase 3 on Monday, different levels of comfort between the houses. So how do we address these COVID-19 concerns? The first is communication. You have to tell your clients, and for those of you who are parents going through this, that you have to put aside whatever differences you may have with your ex-spouse or ex-partner and co-parent for the safety and the health of the children, because that comes first. Flexibility is key. You need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to figure out, what are we going to do if one parent doesn't agree, if one parent is infected? What are the options if it's not safe to exchange the children? Those options are parent by video. We have Skype, Zoom, we have FaceTime. You can set up times for a parent who may not be able to see the children in person to continue being a part of their lives during the pandemic. You can decide that maybe if one parent is sick, they're going to stay at the other parent's home. And you have to have contingencies in place. You don't want to get the phone call that I'm infected, don't send the kids home, when the kids are already at the front door. You want to have contingencies in place if both parents are infected. Who is better suited to self-quarantine to avoid the children getting infected? For example, if one parent lives in a house with a lot of different rooms in a basement where one lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, obviously the house might be better. Those are the keys: communication, flexibility, and contingencies. One of the other questions that we were getting is, are the courts really closed? Well, no, they were never actually closed. What they were was closed to the general public. Starting on July 13th, in limited capacities, the general public will be allowed back into courthouses. The courts have always been hearing emergencies, and they've been doing those hearings via telephone and virtual hearings for the most part. That is going to continue for the foreseeable future. And to date, 3 counties have set up virtual registries in Barnstable, Essex, and Middlesex counties. You're going to want to resolve things out of court because there's going to be a backlog. There's going to be long waits, continued limited staff, limited hearing, and it's going to be difficult outside of an emergency to get heard. Now, if you absolutely need court, you can request an emergency hearing, you can request a telephone or a video hearing. And you can see on the screen in front of you, Rule 78. That's where, if both sides are in agreement, a judge can make a decision based on the pleadings. Now, we're going to have a resource page at the end, and I've included some links to the courts that tell you how to file for telephone, that are the current standing orders in place. Now, for Rule 78 specifically, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate pleadings so that a judge can make a ruling. That may mean affidavits, that may mean agreement on what the facts are. And you may even have to have a ruling from the judge if they'll do a Rule 78 if both sides don't agree. Now, what can we do without relying on the court? Obviously, if you're co-parenting, try and reach agreements yourself. Think outside the box to figure things out. These are new times for all of us. There are very few people still around from the last time there was a pandemic like this in the early 20th century. So try and work it out. Get assistance through alternative dispute resolution and outside of court, which brings us up to Susan in the next part of our presentation.